Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, GCP, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
Ryan,
and Peter.
Episode 219, recorded for July 12th, 2023. One does not just enter into Mordor. Good evening, Jonathan. How's it going?
It's going well. Nice and hot right now.
Yeah, another second heat wave of the summer here in California. So,
Yep.
But yeah, I was noticing in your old stomping grounds of Florida that it's really, really warm there, which I think is crazy because I don't think I've ever seen temperatures that hot for that extended amount of time. That now the oceans are warming in Florida. I think just punishment for Florida's politics.
Yeah, probably.
I don't believe in a higher power, but maybe in this time I do.
And malaria as well is kind of making a comeback in Florida too. So yeah, I'm glad to not be there anymore for many reasons.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, let's talk about the news this week. Once again, AWS has an update for solution, actually. These are the pre-built solutions using Amazon components. And this is a solution for Clickstream analytics for your AWS mobile and web applications. This covers both iOS and Android. You can deploy an end-to-end solution to capture, ingest, store, analyze, and visualize your customers' clickstreams inside your web and mobile app. The solution is built using standard AWS services to allow you to keep your data in the security and compliance perimeter of your AWS account and to customize the processing analytics as you require, giving you full flexibility to extract value for your business. The solution leverages ECS for the data processing or ingestion side, either Kafka, Kinesis, or S3. You can pick your poison. EMR for data processing, Redshift, and QuickSight for the data visualization. There's several plugins available that you can write for it, as well as they're giving you a plugin for both user agent enrichment and IP address enrichment. And all I can think about this is if only you'd shipped this 9 months ago when everyone was trying to run away from Google Analytics and needed a better solution that met GDPR compliance, a lot of us could have saved ourselves a lot of time and effort. So appreciate if this had been a little sooner, but I do like this. I always love these pre-built solutions. They're a great use case of like, how does Amazon think about their stitching their services together? What patterns can you pick out of these? So even if you're not interested in Clickstream analytics, if you have a similar use case or something sort of adjacent to this, it's always good to check these out and see if this could inform your architecture. Yeah,
I have no real use case for Clickstream analytics, but it is super nice to see these canned solutions. I think it was one of the criticisms for Amazon for a long time. It's great you've got all these primitives, but help me put it together to do something. So these are great examples for what you can do. And of course, they're basically, they're not free, but you pay for the underlying services, but you're not paying for the fact that somebody built this solution for you. So just operating costs.
Yeah, they even have a cloud. I believe they have cloud cost optimization opportunities and solutions, but I would appreciate maybe some additional of those, more dashboards, more pretty pictures. You're dealing with your Amazon bill. Well, if you've ever had to set up DynamoDB as a distributed cache provider in .NET, you may have been frustrated with the documentation and or complexity of what you have to do and think to yourself, really nice if Amazon would just do that for me with an SDK. And they are here today to provide that to you if you're using ASP.NET Core Distributed Caching Framework to now give you a built-in plugins, letting you avoid all the unnecessary heavy lifting and reading of documentation.
That's awesome. This is replacing things like memcache and other similar technologies that are pluggable, I assume.
Yeah. This is just one of many options, but this is a NoSQL-ish type of solution because of course Dynamo maps to some Mongo capabilities and others. So you get a lot of high speed write operations for relatively low cost that you can then report on and ship this data into other places as well. So if you need to do metrics on cached hits and cache misses, etc. So lots of good opportunities with this particular package.
Yeah, it's nice. I imagine you could do some clever stuff with like session analytics as well by using DynamoDB streams to filter out particular information.
Yeah. One of the things I've done quite a few times is enable session state for ASP.NET code. And you can actually even use this Dynamo TV table to cache that, which is kind of great because the way you either do it is you use Redis, which is the right way to do it, or you use SQL Server, which is the wrong way to do it. And you cause yourself all kinds of grief when your application gets a few hundred connections, as your SQL Server can't keep up with it. So always good to have another option in addition to Redis that is not SQL Server. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, one less reason to not move your Windows workloads to AWS.
Yeah. I don't remember if you remember the story, but it was maybe a year or two ago. There was a lawsuit that Amazon filed against a couple of real estate developers about data center, real estate transactions that were involved some insider kickbacks, perhaps. Well, one of the key people who was in the deposition of this and was testifying against those people was Chris Vonderhaar, who was the VP of AWS Data Center Community. And before that, he was in charge of demand and supply chain and forecasting for the AWS data centers. He left somewhat abruptly in May. It was not announced, but people picked up on it, especially the person whose husband was being sued tweeted about it at the time. But he's now joined Google as VP of Demand and Supply Management. Apparently, this is part of a larger shakeup in Google Cloud's management team, and changes include longtime Google executive Urs Holz, who we talked about before, shifting to an individual contributor role, which is interesting. In the past, though, Amazon, of course, has been very aggressive about pursuing legal action against former executives who don't live in California. And so we'll see if a lawsuit drops here soon for this. But if anybody needs capacity planning and forecasting help, it's Google Cloud. So if he can make Google Cloud just like Amazon, where I don't have to worry about compute families, I would be very happy. And so I hope that he can fix a lot of the problems that Google has, in particular on forecasting and demand management.
Yeah, I don't remember that lawsuit, but if you want anyone in the world to fix supply management for data centers, then he's your man, I guess.
Yeah, I would say for sure. Well, if you have been angry that Google Cloud Run only supports timeout of 1 hour and had pivoted to using more things like Knative to solve this problem, Google now supports up to 24 hours for a timeout on Google Cloud Run, allowing your long running jobs. I like to refer to this as server full for serverless, which is a great feature. And for those of you who can't get into the eventing workspaces and you do have long-running transactions, it is always nice to have an option that does not require a server. But do be careful in this one. The pricing can get a little out of control on long-running transactions. So do your math and ROI calculation to see if maybe you should just run it in a container. If it's going to take that long, just put it out there. Just going to put it out there.
I'd be curious to see what the upcharge will be for running it in Cloud Run versus just on demand. I imagine it's quite significant. Yeah. Always nice, though. I mean, you kind of fall into these patterns of always wanting to use Lambda or always wanting to use something else. So I guess if you've already built the whole ecosystem around a particular technology and then you just have this one edge case, I can see it being advantageous to swallow the cost of the runtime cost for this thing in exchange for not having to build all that other tech that you might need.
Well, when you buy a really fancy hammer and you learn how to use that hammer properly, and it is Lambda or serverless, and you want to use it for all your things, then yeah, you want the option. So even if it's not the right use case for the hammer, I would still like to use it because I like it. It's pretty.
Yep.
That's how you end up here. But there are definitely batch processing use cases and export use cases where it makes some sense to do these things. But most of your normal use cases, a container would be cheaper. So just be careful.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to think that there'd be some smart way of orchestrating these things so that you can automatically place them into the environment, which would be most optimal for cost. If you're already running containers, it's already in a container. You could run it anywhere. So, build some kind of orchestration system that looks at prior runs and says, well, actually, this would be better to run here or here or maybe not at all.
All right. Well, Azure has a bunch of stories this week, which is good because Google and AWS were disappointing. So lots of things to talk about in the Microsoft place. Azure has announced new burstable VMs, the BAS v2 and the BPS v2. The VMs are a more cost-effective way to run workloads that burst in and out of activity. They have a base performance level that is guaranteed, and they can burst to a higher performance level for short periods of time. BAS v2 VMs are designed for workloads that only need to run occasionally, and they offer a pay-as-you-go pricing model. To learn more about these, you can check out the blog announcement that we've linked to in the show notes to learn all about BAS, BPS, and BSV2 instances. This is a great solution until they go wrong, where your workload that you thought was burstable is very much in demand, and you run out of credits for your instance, which is how they do it, I believe, on Azure as well as AWS for burstable T-class instances over there. So be careful. And how you use these.
As you almost love this kind of thing because now they can charge for the full Windows license for all 8 cores, but you actually only get two cores worth of performance.
I had thought of that perspective, but yes, you're completely right. That's well done, Microsoft. Well done.
Yeah. Nice move.
Yeah.
Have you been waiting months and months to hire your new AWS, GCP, or Azure architect only to have them be poached at the 11th hour by a startup with a juice bar? Initiatives stalled because you're having trouble hiring? Well, I have a simple solution. Foghorn Consulting. Foghorn Consulting provides top-notch cloud engineers to the world's most innovative companies and can be burning down your DevOps and cloud backlogs as soon as next week. Foghorn certified AWS, GCP, and Azure professionals are armed with infrastructure as code, and from day one will be designing performant, optimized cloud-native or hybrid environments that deliver on the promise of cloud. Their FogOps solution even provides on-demand cloud engineering to augment your existing teams. Visit www.foghornconsulting.com or send an email to cloudtalentnow@foghornconsulting.com and tell them the CloudPod sent you. Your dedicated FogOps team is with you for the long haul, and they bring their own juice.
Well, if you are a user of Azure AD, it is now being renamed to Microsoft Entra ID. The name change represents the evolution and unification of the entire Microsoft Entra family and commitments to simplify secure access. I did not realize there was an entire Entra family. I don't know how we missed that announcement. Maybe their blog was broken that day or something. I don't really know. But if you're using Azure AD, you have no changes to any of the APIs or any of the things you normally do. The only thing they're doing is changing the branding. Assume eventually the APIs will change, but for now they will not. Entra ID is, of course, just the AD part of it that you know and love. It includes user access, permission groups, management, etc. But the rest of the Entra family also gives you lovely features like, all in the Entra ID is app integrations via SSO and passwordless and MFA, conditional access, identity protection, privileged identity management, end user self-service, and a unified admin center. And now it also joins the rest of the Entra product family, which includes ID governance, external SSO, verified ID, permissions management, workload ID, internet access, and private app access. And as I was looking into this, it's a very interesting competitor to things like Okta and others. So interesting service that maybe not marketed well, because I don't even know when they announced this product because we missed it. So sorry.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I see why they've renamed it, because in a way, it's Microsoft AD is a thing that you can deploy yourself and do things with, but this is a managed service, so it makes sense to give it a new name, I guess, give it a new brand.
Yep. So apparently the Entra product family was announced a year ago in July of 2022. We clearly were on vacation. That's all.
Obviously, there haven't been very many updates for it in the past 12 months either, because I don't think we've actually seen this come up again since then.
Yeah, it's interesting. How we've been doing the show for a couple of years. I would say that the last 15 months now have been just kind of slow in general terms. So I don't know if that's a sign of the maturing cloud market. I don't know if that's a sign of productivity issues and layoffs impacting things. But I am sort of curious to see what Google Next drops this year. I'm really curious to see what reInvent does this year, because it definitely feels like big innovations are kind of slowing down. And I don't know if that's just a perception I have or if that's reality. Yeah,
I have the same perception. I kind of put it down to the interruption of the dev cycle from COVID and things like that. But I mean, that's really kind of been done and dusted for maybe a year now. You would have thought things would have gone back to normal by then. Of course, this is the whole reason for which they're pushing for back to office. Maybe it really has impacted productivity.
Yeah, it's possible. I do think it's harder to do like centralized planning. I think it's harder to do ideation not in an office. But that's why I sort of like the hybrid idea. The idea of like going to the office, I'm going to ideate an idea, I'm going to do a sprint planning, and then I'm going to go back to the office or back home, and I'm going to do the work, and then come back for the next sprint release and show what I did. But I've heard some feedback from others, around hybrid doesn't work. You have to pick one or the other. You're either full hybrid or full remote, or you're full in the office. And so there's some belief that this hybrid thing is a fad that will eventually lead to back full in the office. Or people will backtrack to work from home when they realize it's not working for them from an employment perspective.
I like the hybrid idea, honestly. I think full in the office is unnecessary, and full at home is probably detrimental to teamwork and things. So hybrid works.
I think it's a good balance. I think it works, and I think you had to give these things more than a few months to work out how well they're going to work or not work, and what the consequences are. But I also think some of the things we saw from Meta, for example, where they said newer employees struggle to get engaged properly. Maybe there's a period of time where being more in the office with people is good for them, but how do you balance that with your senior people versus junior people? I don't know. We're definitely between that and AI. I feel like work is going to dramatically change in the next 5 years. So
it's hard to get past the AI thing. I imagine Google Next and reInvent will all be very focused on AI and AI use cases and AI tools, and which is in a way, kind of cool. There's some really neat things going on, but also a little worrying for people, especially junior people coming into the industry.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The only time will tell. Well, if you were all excited about Entra ID and the security implications that could have, maybe you should hold off because Microsoft has announced they've mitigated a China-based threat actor with the Storm 0558 group or exploit. I don't really know what it is, but targeting of customer emails. Apparently, the threat actor used a variety of techniques to steal email credentials, including phishing emails, malicious websites, and watering hole attacks. Microsoft blocked the threat actor's activity and notified customers who may have been affected. The most concerning part of the announcement, though, in my opinion, is that they talk about this quote here is the actor exploited a token validation issue to impersonate Azure AD users and gain access to enterprise mail. And they don't really say how he got that token. Was it, is it a token that everybody has access to in the web application, or is it a private token that he should never have been exposed that he got through an insider threat model or from maybe a former employee, or I don't know how that got out there. I wish they would expand on this. The initial alert on it is pretty lightweight. Hopefully they'll talk about it more in the future. We'll keep an eye on this one. As lots of people on Twitter were saying some of the same things I just said about tokens. Like, how did they get it? Because it's the big missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, being able to forge tokens to access Outlook web access is slightly concerning. I hope they go into a bit more detail about that.
Yeah, I think they need to. So hopefully they respond with more than 3 paragraphs, which is about the length of this particular article. This particular announcement, it doesn't have a ton of detail in it. But looking forward to hearing more. Well, Azure is their cross-region load balancer is now generally available. Of course, this allows you to distribute traffic across multiple regions, like a global load balancer, as F5 calls them. This provides high availability and disaster recovery, as if one region fails, the other regions continue to serve that traffic. Load balancer uses a global network of Azure Virtual Network Gateways to provide high-performance, low-latency connections to ensure that users in any region will have a good experience with accessing your application. As you expect, the load balancer also provides health checking to ensure that only healthy instances are serving traffic. And when you use the words like virtual network gateways, all I can think is NAT gateways and lots of money, but I don't think that's actually the case in this particular announcement.
Yeah, I laughed when I read through some of this stuff about users having a good experience when accessing your application. Like, well, maybe the best experience you could give them, but maybe not necessarily a good experience.
Yeah, if you're next to the server that's normally in Los Angeles, and now you're being routed to India, that's not going to be a great latency experience, I'm sure. So, good on them. The ADX external tables feature is new to Azure Databricks. This will allow you to connect to external data sources and query from Databricks SQL. It's useful for a variety of reasons, such as accessing data that is not stored in Databricks, such as data in a data warehouse or on-premise file system, querying that data in a more efficient way than is possible with Databricks native connectors, and using Databricks' powerful SQL engine to analyze data from a variety of sources. To use the ADX external tables, you first need to create an external table definition, and this definition specifies the location of data source and the format of the data. I hope it's not as bad as defining an Athena one. Once you have created an external table definition, you can query it using Databricks SQL, and this is currently in preview and available for a limited number of customers. You can reach out to your sales rep to become one of those limited special people, just like winning the lottery.
That's nice. I think BigQuery has that already, I believe.
It does, yes.
Yeah. I mean, going back to like the innovation over the past year and a half, maybe there's definitely kind of a leveling of products and product offerings across all the clouds. I think Azure have definitely caught up in a lot of areas. They've obviously caught up in AI, and perhaps in data analytics and things as well now. So that's definitely been a leveling over the past year or so of technology. I still don't think I'd choose Azure for anything unless somebody had a gun to my head. But it's.
I mean, if you had a lot of SQL Server, I would highly suggest you take a hard look at it because the licensing benefits are pretty lucrative. Plus, not having to manage SQL Server always on availability groups is a amazing benefit because, in my experience now, always on availability groups are very error prone. Take a lot of care and feeding.
I'm wondering if that licensing benefit will actually go away through legal action at some point. It does seem a little unfair to the market.
Yeah, I would hope so. It's interesting to me Databricks is still around because I was convinced this company would get bought by Microsoft when they created Azure Databricks. But I was just looking at them as we were talking. They've raised a lot of money, including like $1.6 billion in August 2021. So they have a long runway, and they're probably very expensive to buy at $1 billion in revenue. But I'm sure assume they're going to IPO at some point. So and then if they fall apart, then Microsoft can buy them for cheap on the stock market. So maybe it's a good strategy.
That's what they're hoping for.
Well, that's all of our big topics for this week, which means a super short show because Matt and Ryan are not here today. But any other cloud things I missed in our show that you want to talk about, Jonathan?
No, I don't think so. I've been very non-cloud focused lately on some other dev work and stuff. So
yeah, this is the joy of July and June when everyone goes on vacation. And apparently Amazon and Azure and GCP stop announcing stuff. It's a little slow sometimes. So we don't always have as many topics in the summer, which is nice and also, not normal for us. But then you come right out of this right into August, next, and then into reInvent, and then we're just buried in news for most of the rest of the year. So
yeah, it's kind of nice having a little less to keep track of at the moment. I've had time to build Slack bots and various other things, and discovered that they made it a lot easier to write Slack bots than it used to be now with Bolt SDK, which is awesome.
Yeah, I haven't done anything with bots in quite a while. What was that? The model WhoBot was the thing I used to write bots in.
That's right. Yeah,
and that was always horrendous because it wasn't. They weren't JavaScript, but they were something like
CoffeeScript.
CoffeeScript, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's every time I do CoffeeScript, I remember why I don't want to do front end development. So in this new Bolt thing, is it allow you to use more modern languages like Python or Go or anything crazy, or is it still sort of weird CoffeeScript things?
Python, JavaScript, something else. There was one other. I remember there's like 3 panes on the thing. Definitely Python though, which is my go-to at the moment.
Yeah, that's nice. That's good. Yeah. I'll have to share a little bit more about it when you're done with your project because it sounds neat. So.
Will do.
All right. Well, we will see you all next week. We should have Matt and Ryan back as they will be returning from their activities they're on, and we will have a full show next week. See you then.
See you later. Have a good week.
And that is the Week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Foghorn Consulting. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and tweet us your feedback at #TheCloudPod. Or join our Slack channel. Go to our website, thecloudpod.net for sign-up instructions.